Sexual instinct. Humanity depends on it. We have been designed to value procreation above all else. However, procreation shortens life. Animals that reproduce die sooner, humans included. At the same time, society tells us that sex and masturbation are perfectly harmless, that the dangers of masturbation are a great myth passed down throughout history, and we're supposed to believe this. It's a facade. To reproduce at the cost of all else. This is why you are here. To carry on the genetic code inside of you and pass it on to the next generation. The continuation of our species takes precedence over the individual organism. Reproduction hastens death. We are scheduled to die. Based on much research, the overarching conclusion of reproduction is that it will slowly degenerate our organism's physical integrity and ultimately shorten our life. The disposable soma theory of aging explains this mechanism in depth. Semen retention is the natural state of animals and insects outside of mating times. To carry on the genetic code inside of you and pass it on to the next generation. How do we simultaneously acknowledge the life-shortening effects of sexual activity and promote the active loss of semen as a harmless exercise? The relationship between sex and lifespan has been known since ancient times. Evidence of the dangers of sexual fluid loss and excess can be seen in the Bible and ancient Hindu and Hermetic texts, in the writings of renowned Greek and Roman philosophers, and so on. Hippocrates believed that seminal losses caused tabes dorsalis, a fatal wasting disease. Plato considered semen as coming from the spinal marrow. Pythagoras called semen the flower of the purest blood and demanded chastity from all of his students. Aristotle believed there was an intimate connection between the testicular fluid and the brain and nervous tissues. He referred to the semen as the most perfect part of the body. These philosophers conserved their sexual force in what is known today as semen retention. Both Plato and Aristotle throughout their lives adhered strictly to the rules of chastity, the path which Pythagoras recommended for the attainment of the highest intellectual, physical, and spiritual perfection. Epicurus, who practiced Pythagorean continence, considered the semen as part of the mind and soul, meaning that when conserved, it is taken up to the brain, which it nourishes and strengthens, whereas its loss weakens the brain, as self-observation and experience proves. Gallian summarized the views of the physicians and philosophers of antiquity when he wrote, "In emissions of semen we lose at the same time the vital force. It is not therefore surprising that too frequent coition enervates, since it deprives the body of its purest parts." That the great minds of history could arrive at very similar conclusions regarding the cost of reproduction only serves to enforce the recent discoveries by scientists and doctors of the consequences of reproduction on the organism and its lifespan. A eunuch is a man who has had his testicles removed and usually worked as guards or servants in harems or other women's quarters. It has long been said that eunuchs lived longer and never went bald. We have learnt from research that castration has many biological effects on the organism, both positive and negative. One effect of particular relevance is the increase in lifespan. A 2012 study on the lifespans of Korean eunuchs concluded that eunuchs lived on average 14 to 19 years longer than non-castrated men of that era. The researchers concluded that male sex hormones may negatively influence lifespan, and thus we see a difference between male and female life expectancies. The research findings of the eunuchs point to the same conclusions as that of the research in animals and lifespan, that reproduction comes at a cost to the organism. If we wish to conserve our life energies, we must not spend them on meaningless sexual activity. For the sake of procreation can be seen as a necessary sacrifice, but for the sake of momentary pleasure would be a tremendous waste.